All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I am Pastor Mo, pastor of Liberating Truth Church, right here in Roseville, Michigan. Every Sunday morning at 10:30, we have Bible and brunch at 30300 Gratiot inside of the Holiday Inn Express and Suites inside of the Rose Room. And we are live there every Sunday morning at 10:30 with DJ Intense. And so Lady Tracy is in the studio with us today. My wife, minister in training, and our administrator. And so she rides shotgun and everything that I do. So I thank her for being here tonight. We sent out the link, and so hopefully people will be joining us in the studio and watching live on Facebook. If you are watching live on Facebook, please share. And if you missed this and you're watching this um, later after the actual live, you can also watch our archives at any given time on YouTube because it is recorded live there as well. And so tonight we are going to dig into Genesis chapters 20, 21, and 22. And on last Wednesday, we covered 17, 18, and 19. And we left off um, in Genesis chapter 19. And let's just go there really quick. And we covered the two angels that went to deliver a lot out of Sodom before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And we looked at the end of chapter 19 where his daughters um, got him drunk, basically. He had become a farmer and a husbandman, and he had a garden and he had grapes. So they made some wine and gave him to drink. As a matter of fact, they said, "Come, let us uh, make our father drunk so that we can preserve seed, have sons by him." We know that their husbands were left in Sodom to be destroyed. When Lot went to them and said, "Hey, the angels of the Lord came to me and said, we got to get out of here," they laughed at him. And so they didn't take him serious and they ended up being left behind. And so now we're going to go into chapter 20, and I'm reading from the Amplified Version. And so we are live on YouTube and Facebook. Everything is looking good. Again, please share that we are on live, a walk through the Bible with Pastor Mo Edwards of Liberating Truth Church. And we are covering Genesis chapters 20 through 22. All right. And it reads, "Now Abraham journeyed from there toward the Negev, or the South Country, and settled between Kadesh and Shur. Then he lived temporarily in Gerar. And Gerar was a city inside of um, the Philistine country, which was just east of um, Israel. So you had Israel, and then just east you had um, the Philistine um, country, Philistia, and some other cities which uh, later on became Palestine, or that entire area. You had Israel, you had Judah, and all of that continent right there. And some know it as Palestine, the Levant, Israel. It was just one continent there, and just south, you had the very northern tip of Egypt, and that's why it was so easy for the children of Israel to go south and go into Egypt. And in our earlier studies, we found that many countries went to Egypt because they had a surplus of food and mineral wealth all the time, which they still do. Um, and that's why a lot of people have gone throughout the years to get things uh, from Africa. And so let me take that down. And so it says, Abraham said again, and so he's done this before, um, of Sarah, his wife, she is my sister. And remember, we talked about how back in that time that uh, different countries, when you took a short journey through their country, sometimes they were evil and they would kill men for their wives, especially if they were beautiful. And so we learned earlier in our studies that uh, Abraham told Pharaoh, the Egyptian king, she's my sister, and um, and God delivered them out of Pharaoh's hands, or deliver Abraham, that is, so he wouldn't be killed and have his wife taken. So the question is Sarah really his sister? And we're going to find out. So Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah into his harem. Okay, that's what it was called in different countries, a harem. In Israel, it was wives and then concubines, right? But God came to Abimelech in a dream during the night and said, Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken as your wife, for she is another man's wife. And so that was a no-no. Okay. Now Abimelech had not yet came near her or had sexual intercourse with her. So he said, Lord, will you kill a people who are righteous and innocent and blameless regarding Sarah? In other words, we didn't know. He said that it was his sister. Uh, did Abraham not tell me she is my sister? And she herself said, He is my brother. So she started to go along with this as well. In the integrity of my heart and innocence of my hands have I done this. Watch what God says. Then God said to him in the dream, Yes, I know you did this in the integrity of your heart. For it was I who kept you back and spared you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not give you an opportunity to touch her. And so God will give us an out. Okay. So now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet. You all should write that down. Uh, he is the first um, man, I believe, in scripture who is called a prophet. Or another way you can look at it is um, most people, when they think about Abraham, they think about his faith, they think about him taking his son to be sacrificed. But very few people know that Abraham was called a prophet. And he says, and he will pray for you and you will live. But if you do not return her to him, know that you shall die. You and all who are yours, your whole household. So God is not playing with this. So Abimelech got up early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things, and the men were terrified. They're like, whoa, what this dude done did to us. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? And how have I offended you that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? Like what I do to you? I didn't ask you to come here. I didn't ask you to lie to me. What are you doing, bro? And so You have done to me what ought not be done to anyone. You got this king of the Philistines saying, "Man, you shouldn't do this to nobody. That like this is crazy. You're trying to get us killed, right?" Um, and Abimelech said to Abraham, "What have you encountered or seen in us or our customs that you have done this unjust thing?" Abraham said, "Because I thought," this is what he was thinking, "surely there is no fear or reverence of God in this place." That was quite a stereotype or prejudgment on his part, right? "And they will kill me because of my wife." Well, people was known to do that, but he just presumed that this king of the Philistines, Abimelech, was going to do it to him. Okay. Besides, she actually is my half sister. There's your answer to the question. A lot of people, say, well, did Abraham lie? No, he didn't lie. Besides, she is actually my half sister. She is the daughter of my father, Terah, but not of my mother. And she became my wife. And we know back then that your kinfolk could become your husband or wife because God was still populating the earth, right? When God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, "This kindness and loyalty you can show me at every place we stop. Say of me, he is my brother." So, in other words, you got to help me not get killed as we're traveling. Because when they see you, you're a bad sister. They gonna definitely take me out to get to you. Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham. So he's sending him away with a reward. Get up out of here. And returned Sarah, his wife, to him as God commanded. So Abimelech said, "Behold, my land is before you. Settle wherever you please." See, when you have a dream from God and God tell you to get it together, it'll make you it'll make you do even more than what he asked. Like, here's your wife back and some servants. Okay, just go. All right, settle wherever you please. The land is before you. Then to Sarah he says, "Look, I have given this brother of yours 1,000 pieces of silver." So now he done gave him some money. "It is to compensate you for all that has happened and to vindicate your honor before all who are with you. Before all men, you are cleared and compensated." So he's making sure that God is going to favor him and not get him for what Abraham set him up to happen to him. So Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maids, and they again gave birth to children. For the Lord had securely closed the wombs of all the women in Abimelech's household because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. So yeah, he was ready to send him away because God has stopped all the women from being able to bear children. Okay, because of this. All right, chapter 21. The Lord graciously remembered and visited Sarah. Remember, she was promised a son, right? She laughed about it. Yeah, right. Am I gonna have pleasure in having a child? Not that I'm just gonna have a child at an old age, but am I gonna even enjoy this? And visited Sarah, and he said, and the Lord did for her as he had promised. So Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son for Abraham in his old age at the appointed time of which God had spoken to him. Now they waited a long time. When Hagar had Ishmael, Abraham was 86. Now he's 100, still waiting on the promise of them having a son. So you've got to be patient, my brothers and sisters. He may not come when you want him, but yeah, y'all know what it says. So, um, Abraham named his son Isaac, which means laughter, the son to whom Sarah gave birth. So Abraham circumcised his son Isaac. Why did he circumcise him? Because God made a covenant to bless. Uh, because God said, "How am I going to know that these things are going to come to pass?" God made a covenant with him that I'm going to keep my promise, and your end of the covenant is every male from when they become 8 years old, you're going to circumcise them. This covenant is going to be in your flesh. And so when men are circumcised, they cover the women because the women can't be circumcised, obviously. Circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, I meant. Did I say years earlier? If I did, it's 8 days. Sorry about that. Just as God had commanded him. So he was obedient to the covenant, right? To the agreement. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. Sarah said, watch this, God has made me to laugh. All who hear about our good news will laugh with me. You know what I'm saying? So everybody gonna say, wow. Sarah they done got their groove back at 100, at 100 years old, they done had a child. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? Who would have thought? Who would have said it? Who would have even spoken this other than God? Definitely none of my friends and family would have never told me this, but God. For I have given birth to a son by him in his old age. And so the child Isaac grew and was weaned, and Abraham held a great feast on that day that Isaac was weaned. All right. Verse 9. Watch this, y'all. Now, as time went on, Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking, mocking Isaac. Okay? Like, yeah, I'm the oldest though. I'm the one that made Abraham a father before you. Therefore, she said to Abraham, drive out this maid and her son, for the son of this maid shall not be the heir with my son Isaac. Being in the house would have never stopped it, Sarah. Isaac was the heir of the promise, regardless of whether they was in the house or not. But she overreacting just like she did before when she gave Hagar to him. Sarah was something else, man. The situation distressed Abraham greatly because of his son Ishmael. God said to Abraham, do not let it distress you because of Ishmael and your maid. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her and do what she asks. For your descendants will be named through Isaac. So don't worry about it. And I will also make a nation of Ishmael, the son of the maid, because he is your descendant too. That's your son too. I'm going to look out for him. So Abraham got up early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water. They kept wine and water and stuff in skins, and gave them to Hagar, putting them on her shoulder, and gave her the boy and sent her away. And she left, but lost her way and wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, Hagar abandoned the boy under the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him, a bow shot away. So about how far you could shoot a bow. For she said, don't let me see the boy die, because they don't have no more water. Can't live without water, right? And they didn't have food. They didn't have anywhere to go. She's like, man, I don't even want to see him die. And she sat down opposite him. She raised her voice and wept. God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God came to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar?" Notice she raised her voice and wept, but God heard the boy. Wow, you can preach that. I'm gonna let you figure it out. She wept, but God heard the boy. Hmm. And the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Don't be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy from where he is resting." Because it's about this boy who's carrying on the the inheritance, or who will inherit the promise, carry on the legacy. This ain't about you, no way, Sarah. This is about God's promised child. So I heard you crying too, but my ear is towards this child. Come on now. Sometimes it ain't about you. Sometimes it's about your child. You lived your life. It's about your child now and what I'm gonna do through him. Somebody needed to hear that. Get up, help the boy up, and hold him by the hand, for I will make him a great nation. Let me speak to your son. You know, you've been tripping this whole time, but it ain't about you. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the empty skin with water and gave the boy a drink. It's a well right over there. Okay, it's a well right over there for you to draw water while you whining. Okay. Speaking of Hagar, not Sarah. Okay. This is about the child. And it says, God was with Ishmael, and he grew and developed, and he lived in the wilderness and became an expert archer. Let me let somebody else into the stream. All right. Okay. And before we go forward, let me backtrack so I don't mix anybody up. We're talking about Hagar and Ishmael. I think I mentioned Sarah. This is Hagar and Ishmael. She's worried about herself, but it's about Isaac. He's the promised child, but Ishmael's gonna be blessed too. Sarah and Hagar, they going through their thing, but it's about the boys. Okay. And so verse 20 says, God was with Ishmael. God said that Isaac was the promised seed, but Ishmael's going to be a great nation too. Okay. It's about these boys while these women tripping, right? Can't just put it all on Sarah because Hagar tripping too. And he grew and developed, and he lived in the wilderness and became an expert archer, an expert bowman. He was good, he was nice with the bow and arrow. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. And so you can kind of see what kind of mother he was. She took him a wife. The man is supposed to choose the wife. Okay. And so, verse 22, now at that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. This Abimelech, seeing the dream of God and everything, the favor that Abraham had on his life, he came to him. I need to talk to you, Abraham. So now swear to me here by God that you will not deal unfairly with me by breaking any agreements we have, or with my son, his descendant, or with my descendants. But as I have treated you with kindness, you shall do the same to me and to the land in which you have sojourned or temporarily lived. So this man already know that Abraham is blessed and his descendants are going to be blessed. And so he's saying, look, you and your nation, y'all look out for me now. Don't trip when y'all nation grow and comes into power, whatever. Do be nice to me like I was to you when you were in my land. Okay. And Abraham said, I will swear. Then Abraham said, okay, but I got one thing against you now. Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about the well which the servants of Abimelech had take violently seized from him. Abimelech said, I do not know who did this thing. I didn't even know about it. Indeed, you did not tell me. I did not hear of it until today. So he's saying, I've been kind to you, didn't know that my servants was tripping. So Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant, a binding agreement. Then Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs of the flock, and Abimelech said to him, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs which you have set apart? Abraham said, you are to accept these 7 ewe lambs from me as a witness that I dug this well. I'm gonna give you this as a witness that I dug this well. This is my well. Therefore, that place was called Beersheba, well of the oath, or well of the 7. Okay, speaking of the 7 ewe lambs, because there were 2 of them who swore an oath. So anytime you make an oath or an agreement, it has to be sealed. Okay. Just like today, when you have an agreement or contract, you sign it. Well, they did different things back then to seal their agreements. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, got up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he called the name of the Lord in prayer, the eternal God, and Abraham lived as a resident alien in the land of the Philistines for many days. All right. All right. Last chapter. Hope you all are taking notes, so in case you have any questions. All right. And so now um, we have Isaac. Isaac has been circumcised. Um, and so now Sarah and Abraham have Isaac as their son, the promised seed. Um, he's been circumcised. They're happy. Um, Ishmael and Hagar have been sent off. God has spoken to Hagar that, hey, your son is going to be a great nation, provided water for them. And so now we have Abraham with his son. And so now God is coming to test Abraham's faith. Okay? Watch this, y'all. Now, after these things, God tested the faith and commitment of Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he answered, here am I. God said, take your son, your only son of promise, who you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah and offer him as a burnt offering on the mountains of which I shall tell you. Y'all know what a burnt offering is? It's basically making a, a modern day grill out of wood and cooking something on it. And when you cook an animal, you offering it up to the Lord. You'll see various scriptures that will say a sweet savor came up to the Lord. That's the smoke that came from the offering that they cooked. So yeah, it's hard to fathom, but God said, go and cook your son, basically. Go and offer your son as a burnt offering. That's what a burnt offering is. And we'll learn later on that the altar that the burnt offerings were made on when the children of Israel received the law, so on and so forth, was an altar that burned 24/7. The priest had to keep that altar burning because at any given time God could require a sacrifice. So they had to keep it going all day, all night, and never went out. All right, so he had to build an altar to sacrifice his son. Okay, watch it now. So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him and his son Isaac, and he split the wood for the burnt offering, and then he got up and went to the place of which God had told him. On the third day of travel, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Abraham said to his servants, "Settle down and stay here with the donkey. The young man and I will go over there and worship God." So, sacrificing unto God is an act of worship, and we will come back to you. Now, what does that say right there, y'all? Some people read too fast, all right? What does that say? He said, "We gonna come back to you." When you going to sacrifice him, you must have faith that this ain't gonna go through. If you say we gonna come back, because a burnt offering, ain't nobody coming back from no burnt offering. So he said, "We gonna come back to you." Catch that now. Then Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on the shoulders of Isaac his son. And he took the fire pot, in his own hand and the sacrificial knife. When you sacrifice something, that means you're killing it. I know people say sacrifice your off, sacrifice and give this and give that. The sacrificial when you sacrifice something, you are killing it. Jesus was sacrificed for our sins. He was killed for our sins. Y'all got that? That's what a sacrifice was. You come and you offer. You give the animal to the priest, and they sacrifice it. They kill it. They take the blood and do certain things with it, depending on the offering. And then they cook the offering. Parts of the offering, the animal, which were the priests were able to eat it. Some offerings you had to burn the whole thing. We'll learn about this stuff in Leviticus. Okay. And the two of them walked on together. And Isaac said to Abraham, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." Isaac said, "Look, the fire and the wood, but where's the lamb for the offering?" So his son looking like we're about to go sacrifice and offer it to God, but where's the lamb? You know what I'm saying? Not knowing he's the lamb. Abraham said, "My son," watch this, y'all. Again, people read too fast. Listen. Abraham said, "My son, God will provide for himself a lamb for the burnt offering." So the two walked on together. So Abraham had faith the whole time. Servant, stay here. We're going to be back. And son, God is going to provide a lamb for the offering. So he just know within himself, God ain't going to have me kill my son. He just testing me. Verse 9. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood. So now let's back up real quick. What does that say about an altar? Because we always hear about, come down to the altar and pray. Lay your offering down on the altar, so on and so forth. I don't know how we got to this, don't know the history or whatever, but the pulpit where we preach at and the steps that go to it, up to it, and all of that, you'll find out later there weren't even supposed to be steps made to go up on God's altar. But what we have in our churches and our sanctuaries, those are not altars. An altar is something that they use to cook animals on, to burn offerings. Y'all got it? I know we've taken different things and made it what we want, but that's what the altar is. Okay? Um, and so he took the wood, bound his son, and placed him on the altar, on top of the wood. So at this point, I know Isaac says, "My daddy gone crazy. Like, do I look like a lamb?" Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." He answered, "Here I am." The Lord said, "Do not reach out with the knife in your hand against the boy, and do nothing to harm him. For now I know that you fear God with reverence and profound respect, since you have not withheld um, from me your son, your only son of promise." How many things have you held back and not sacrificed them? Come on now. The things that you love, are you willing to kill it? I ain't talking about your children. Things. Are you willing to kill them, get rid of them to worship God? Or do you love them so much that you'll put them before God? Think about that now. What is it that you holding on to that you won't kill? The attitude, them people, whatever. Getting rid of them, getting them out of your life. How many things will you sacrifice? Will you give up for God in reverence to Him and respect to Him? Think about that tonight when you pray. Um, then Abraham looked up and glanced around, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in the thicket of his horns. You all have probably in the thicket by his horns. You probably have all heard about Abraham and the ram in the bush. Well, this is here. This is it right here. God had already caused a ram to get caught in the bush for Abraham to sacrifice. All right, you know, a lot of the old saints used to be like, God's got a ram in the bush, right? And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering or a sending sacrifice to smoke ascends into heaven instead of his son. So Abraham named the place, the Lord will provide. Now, in the King James Version Bible, it will say Jehovah Jireh, right? Which means the Lord will provide. Okay, Jehovah Jireh. He called the place Jehovah Jireh because the Lord provided what? The lamb. The Lord will provide. And it is said today, on the mountain of the Lord, it will be seen and provided. Where were they at? Mount Moriah, right? Last verses, the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time, all right, this day, and said, by myself, on the basis of who I am, it ain't about you, but who I am, I have sworn an oath, declares the Lord, that since you have done this thing and have not withheld from me your son, your promise, your only son of promise, I indeed will greatly bless you. See, when you give that thing up and honor God, He will bless you. I will make, I will greatly multiply your descendants like the stars of the heavens and like the sand on the seashore, and your seed shall possess the gate of their enemies as conquerors. They're going to go into the land of Canaan, who will find became their enemies. All right, always go back to um, Canaan serving the people of God. Remember, Ham looked upon um, Noah and his nakedness, and Noah didn't curse Ham; he cursed Canaan, his son. Noah cursed his grandson, and so now you'll find why the Canaanites, the descendants of Cain, became Israel's enemy. It's all connected, right? So he says, you're going to possess the gate of your enemies. You're going to go in and take over the land of Canaan, because they were already cursed years ago. All right. Through your seed, all nations of the earth will be blessed because you have heard and obeyed my voice. How will all the nations of the earth be blessed? Because Jesus would come through that lineage and bless all nations. Through your seed, he says, through your seed. And what tribe did Jesus come from? The tribe of Judah, which ended up being the nation of Israel, one of the tribes, right? That's why Jesus is called the Lion from the tribe of Judah. So Abraham returned to his servants, and they got up and went with him to Beersheba, and Abraham settled in Beersheba. And so now, the last few verses, watch what he says. He says, Milcah has borne children to your brother Nahor. So Milcah was his brother Nahor's a wife. And it goes through the 8 children that she had, right? Now watch verse 23. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. So Bethuel, right, um, would be Abraham's nephew, right? And we're going to read later on that Rebecca is going to end up being Abraham's son's wife. Isaac is going to um, take Rebecca as a wife. So this is why this is important. I believe this is why the writer put this here, that Rebecca is going to be born to Bethuel, and later on we're going to see when Isaac sends his servant back to his land and to his people to get a wife for Isaac, he's going to end up finding Rebecca. Okay. So as me and my wife talked, when you look at these stories, the dots just continue to connect. It's like a beautiful story that unfolds. When you read it, you better know the theme of the Bible. You better know the New Testament. And so I hope you all have enjoyed this. Again, we're ending this with this lineage of Abraham's brother with his wife Milcah. Rebecca is in this lineage, and we're going to see Rebecca again as being Isaac's wife. And then Isaac and Rebecca are going to have who? Jacob and Esau. And who descends from Jacob? The 12 tribes, the 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel who make up the nation of Israel. It's a beautiful story that unfolds, y'all. So this has been Pastor Mo, pastor of Liberating Truth Church. We covered Genesis chapters 20 through 22, a beautiful story, a beautiful book that has been written by God through the hearts of men who wrote it. We'll be back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thank you, Lady Tracy, for being in the studio. My oldest daughter here, Sharice, is here in the studio. And I just thank you all for your hunger for the word. I'll be back. Love you all.